Everybody, my name is Scott Schaefer. I am the Vice President of Operations and Assistant General Manager here at Jack Thistledown. That basically means I'm in charge of all of the day-to-day operations on the property and looking after both our employees and our guests. Obviously, we're here to talk about responsible gaming. I'll mention that Jack is committed to fostering a responsible gaming and addressing the problems with gambling head-on to ensure that patrons play responsibly and those who may need help have the resources they need. Providing RG training to all team members upon hiring and through annual refreshers to empower them with the knowledge and tools to ensure that responsible gaming is top of mind for all of our patrons. One of the things we're most proud of is on our property, we have 28 responsible gaming advocates ranging across 6 departments, including environmental services, cage, marketing, security, and of course, our video lottery terminal department. In addition to that, we have utilized internal social media to maximize team member awareness and participation in Responsible Gaming Education Week. I am here to introduce Alessandro Ciaffoncini. Started in 1985, Origo Branding is an advertising agency that develops strategies to advance the health and wellness of others. For years, Origo has been a proud partner of Ohio for Responsible Gaming, helping to implement their statewide campaigns, Get Set Before You Bet, and Change the Game Ohio. Alessandro has led campaigns that build awareness around critical topics, presenting his initiatives at both statewide and national conferences on creating communication strategies on subjects around RX drug abuse prevention, domestic violence, and more specifically, responsible gaming at the PGNO State Conference and the NCPG National Conference. Pleased to introduce to you, Alessandro Ciaffoncini.
Thank you so much, Scott, for that introduction. And, also, we had a little conversation before where Scott did some diligent research on pronouncing my name just about right, and he did it perfectly. I can tell he has some good Italian friends that knows that CI is that ch sound. But anyway, thank you, Scott. And, I wanted to thank our partners at PGNO, Derek, Corey, Mike, Cheyenne, the whole team for putting on this conference. We are a part of this each year, bringing you our new advancements, really for our statewide foundational campaign initiatives for responsible gambling. But I know how much goes into a conference such as this, and the amount of information, research, studies, and trends that are happening in problem gambling and responsible gambling, we utilize to our efforts to always be on top of, say, what's next, and say how we can be constantly evolving our different campaign efforts to really serve you and all the individuals on this call and that are a part of PGNO and part of responsible gambling, really making a difference in the state to make sure that we're always producing new tools, new resources that can really assist and support you in your outreach efforts in your local and regional communities, and even shifting to different populations that you might see on the rise for at-risk problem gambling. So I wanted to say thank you to PGNO for everything that they do in terms of this conference. We find it very valuable to the content creation that we develop for our campaign, as well as kind of keeping our pulse in the field to see what our partners are looking for when really addressing the issues at hand. In different regions are dealing with different issues. Different organizations such as yourself might be having a more of a youth focus, senior focus, minority focus. And today, that's really kind of what our presentation is about. Innovate your outreach, new tactics, and social media strategies for local campaigns. As Scott mentioned, my name is Alessandro Ciaffoncini, president of Origo Branding Company. And as he said, we are a cause marketing communications agency, really focusing on what we like to think of initiatives that really help with the greater good. So whether it be helping with the opiate abuse prevention campaign with the state of Ohio, Take Charge Ohio, that you might know, other domestic violence initiatives such as Be a Hero in the Eyes of a Child with the Ohio Children's Trust Fund out of ODJFS. And then the issue of course, responsible gambling, where we're here to talk about today, which we've been honored to be a part of to really kind of tackle this issue that is evolving it every day. in different formats as, say, sports betting legislation evolves throughout our state. Children are exposed to more forms of gambling that might sneak under, say, parents and educators' noses. So bringing more awareness to that, and really even bringing in more partners such as yourself to make sure that we are in the right direction. You know, I would have been joined today by Beth Burson, which I know if you have attended this conference before, if you've partnered with us on our campaign, you know Beth as our media buyer and media strategist. She is out today, unfortunately, but you know, Beth Burson is really the individual that many of you might have had contact with, as she is the one to help co-brand and help media consultation for free, as we are commissioned by the state to help you with your local campaigns for the assets delivered on our site. I know that Derek mentioned that a lot of resources are going to be available to you and you know, be sent to you from this presentation, including this deck. But hopefully I do a good enough job today to show where you can actually independently find a lot of this information on the websites of Before You Bet and Change the Game Ohio. So I have my two logos up here with the URLs. I feel like a NASCAR vehicle, you know, my sponsorship and so forth. But it's more to really make sure that you have those URLs and you're utilizing them to explore all the great resources we have to get people the help that they need. So to really talk a little bit about what our goals are for today's presentation, while I'm here from Origo Branding Company, I'm really here to represent our partners at Ohio for Responsible Gambling, who really are the ones who are able to make this all happen. These campaign efforts, the support of the local coalitions, behavioral health organizations, health departments, whichever aspect of the community you're from. And it consists of Ohio Lottery, the Ohio Department of Mental Health and Addiction Services, Ohio Casino Control Commission, and our very close partners at Prevention Action Alliance, bringing together these thought leaders that make up the Get Set Before You Bet campaign. And each year, we look to find new insights that we can help develop, say, new tactics to really evolve those campaigns and make it easier for our partners to leverage those different activities through your different strategic efforts. So today we want to help learn about insights of the state's recent research efforts amongst at-risk populations. We've really been focusing on influencers who can help loved ones who might be concerned about someone that is close to them that might be at risk. The campaign also focuses on at-risk populations if they are in need of, say, resources for treatment, help, or just someone to connect to. And from that, how we are developing, and I've already launched some new creative assets that you can leverage in your organization. And this is also from the inquiries that Beth Burson that I mentioned before, people from our organization, just talking with the different groups that have been so great in partnering with our campaign, have mentioned to us as terms of their needs, and developing toolkits that have access to you to really target those different populations. And we're going to talk about some of those tools and resources on a newly designed intuitive online toolkit on the Before You Bet website that, you know, after 5 years of campaign development, that toolkit was getting into a really long list of links and descriptions. We wanted to make it easier to really kind of identify topics, populations, provide thumbnails so you could preview the different materials, as well as provide guidelines on how you can really manage a social media campaign for your organization. And I know we talk about paid social media. Origo does in our media mix for the broader state of Ohio, everything from TV, radio, PR, and earned media. You've probably seen a lot of interviews within your different regions of the state from Scott Anderson, Stacy Fraunhofer-Hassan, the Ohio Lottery, just speaking about for different news networks, as well as a lot of digital tactics. But say if you're running your own organic social media campaign, meaning not paid, wanting to generate content, well, we have a whole toolkit and guide for you at your fingertips that provides pre-generated posts, templates, guidelines on how to use hashtags, and really how to get the most of your different platforms, mainly making a big focus on Facebook and Twitter. But say if needing further consultation on other platforms like Pinterest or say Instagram, Snapchat, we can provide that as well. So we'll go through that at the end of this presentation. So for some of you that are new to say the Get Set Before You Bet campaign, let's take a little step back on how this was developed and really the need and challenge that we were looking to develop. So in 2015, let's put on our time machine. Seems like yesterday. Ohio for Responsible Gambling, really kind of put out this initiative in response to the legalization of casinos within our state. And really, with casinos being legalized, it was put to a vote. Ohioans said they want casinos to be present within Ohio. So with that, the people have spoken. But with that, knowing that there's more forms and access to gambling, in turn, there can be more prevalence to at-risk problem gambling. So to really get ahead of the 8 ball, and we're even seeing that now as new forms come up with online virtual gaming, whether it be, say, new developments in sports betting that is still in discussion. We developed an educational website titled Get Set Before You Bet, utilizing similar models in how we address addiction or other mental health behaviors. It's an awareness campaign. It's an education campaign because we also wanted to use a very positive norming approach, positive social norming approach to this campaign where there was no shame tactics or say really the negative consequences brought to the forefront. We know that that is not something that really resonates or has been seen to be effective. But as Ohioans have voted in other forms of gambling, if choosing to gamble, this is how you can be responsible. So the way we like to look at this is very much a harm reduction type approach in the sense that, say, if you are choosing to gamble, you can minimize, say, those consequences or minimize those risks by doing things such as setting limits, making sure that your bills are paid, making sure it's a social activity, but also letting people know about warning signs such as hidden lost time of individuals, minimizing losses but exaggerating wins. This campaign is developed to serve and be utilized by all Ohioans, but especially you, behavioral health community, who are the people making a difference every day. And the campaign is to address problem gambling as it has become a growing issue for different populations in our state, including youth. So with this, to just show you a little bit of the campaign, there's many tools that you can utilize on this. This is beforeyoubet.org. We have TV spots. We have the phone number, say if someone were needing to talk to somebody, if they are feeling that they are at risk or needing help, or maybe if someone needs to address someone who needs help but doesn't know how to address that. We also have a live chat that is managed by the state where people can go online to say, to express what issues that they're having and get help in that way. The big part of what we want to do is people to take the quiz. This is also an awareness initiative where they can gauge their risk of problem gambling before engaging in betting. And then based on their risk level, gearing them towards different facets of different resources and tools for help. We provide some messaging. As you can see, there's some engaging. We were trying to find a way that we can make a topic that might not be, say, the most positive, but an engaging way to consume these different, this different information, but also PSAs that I'm going to go through in a little bit. You'll also find that we have pages that show ways that we can give statistics from surveys and research that we've recently conducted, warning signs, so ways that people can easily make this into their conversation, as well as learn more to share with others. Tips and education, how you can get set. We give a lot of, say, rollover features. And, we don't promote this as much, but we even have a game where you can say, choose a different character. One is Nora, who likes bingo. One is Derek, who is more of a poker player. He's more in his 20s. Michael Morquino, if you are Nora, you get to make decisions, and I'm controlling Nora right now, where she has responsibilities throughout the day, and she can choose to forego those responsibilities, maybe save them for later, or make the responsible decision. Each time she gives a helpful tip. If you are wrong, you have a chance to correct. Nope, she's saying no, correct. And the goal is to get to the final end where she has lived a life of responsible gambling. So just a little background on some of the resources. Also, with Before You Bet, we also knew this growing prevalence of youth gaming coming into play. A lot of it has to do with online gaming and what, say, youth are experiencing in, say, social apps where you can, say, have slot machine games and poker games and whatever it might be, but even games such as Fortnite and other role-playing games where they might be experiencing loot boxes, reward systems, even games like NBA 2K, Madden, places where you are really kind of putting in either real currency or virtual currency, um, and then really putting it up to chance on what those rewards might be. Just for a bit of your knowledge, while this is not why we do what we do, but at the National Conference for Problem Gambling, this was awarded the best public awareness campaign this year, as well as best website, really tackling this issue and really being innovative in doing so. And it's not as much a site for youth, but really to educate our different audiences, such as parents and educators, on how they can learn more. With that, having toolkits for parents, such as facts and stats, warning signs, the dangers of youth gambling, discussion guides, same for educators, as well as tools that they can use with youth to help educate them. Just a little bit of background. And of course, there will be some lag because we are on Zoom, but just to give you a little bit of background on what, say, Change the Game is about, we have kind of an explainer video. Excuse me for just a moment. Okay. So this would be a tool.
When you think about young kids and teens, you probably don't think about problem gambling, but all those mobile apps and video games they play for hours on end aren't all that different from actual gambling. From loot boxes, to virtual currencies, to skins, the new generation of digital games often simulate potentially harmful behaviors of gambling. These games are promoted directly to kids of all ages, and research shows that it could lead to future problems. Children introduced to gambling before the age of 12 are 4 times more likely to become problem gamblers. The negative effects can be seen throughout high school and college. If these behaviors aren't stopped early, the consequences can affect the rest of the child's life, and we all have a role to play in preventing that from happening. Introducing Change the Game Ohio, a new initiative designed to raise awareness, identify warning signs, and offer solutions to help prevent future gambling problems among our youth. Learn how you can help unlock the reality of youth gambling by visiting the website changethegameohio.org. This message has been brought to you by Ohio for Responsible Gambling.
So just for you to know, that is say a tool that would be able to be co-branded for your organization. We have animators and motion graphics in-house, or if we were to want to put your logo at the end, as well as your organization's information. We also have it in the form of 30 seconds that can be put, say, in pre-roll, social media. But these are the areas where we would encourage you to reach out to us if wanting any of those tools in the educator or, say, parent toolkit to be co-branded to your organization to leverage. Now, coming to 2020 and 2021, we had some new research findings that found who some new populations were that were at risk. And they were really eye-opening to us. The main at-risk population that we were finding in Ohio was still, say, Caucasian youth or Caucasian males, 18 to 24. But in a survey amongst 24,000 plus Ohioans, we were finding that we were having a faster rise in non-white populations such as African-American and Latino populations. We conducted focus groups amongst these at-risk populations so we could create toolkits for you, as that also advertising and educational tactics that can address these different populations. The goal of these focus groups was to best identify best practices in modifying our Before You Bet campaign to better connect with these groups, because with each one, there's just different tendencies, behaviors on the forms of gambling that they prefer, the way that we can form our messaging, even terminology that is utilized that resonates best. And the number one thing that we wanted to be sure of when doing this is that we were culturally competent and respective of the different demographics that we were reaching out to. So therefore, we partnered with Mary Haven, George Hicks, was a great leader in, say, bringing together 3 thought leaders from the African-American community, all people that work within treatment, have experience with gambling, work with youth as well as adults, or just have a concern for the community. And I'm sure many of you know Maryhaven, they do fantastic work. One of Central Ohio's largest and most comprehensive behavioral health services provider, specializing in addiction recovery. They provide comprehensive services for patients who are at all stages of recovery, including inpatient and outpatient care, medically assisted treatment, as well as cognitive, behavioral, and other proven therapies. And when discussing with this group, okay, we showed them kind of what our current PSA was and what our current tactics. We asked about a series of questions about the types of gambling, what they see in their community, the concerns they have, and barriers that we need to overcome when, say, addressing the African-American population. And some of the things that were talked about was the prevalence of lottery. The lottery is very normalized amongst African-Americans, specifically women, as we were told, sometimes referring to it as the numbers game or playing the numbers, which has a whole historical context. Communities actually used to have their own lottery games within their neighborhood. There would be a beholder of the numbers. They would go towards the door. There would be a pot. And at the end of the week, they would reveal the numbers. So there's historic relevance of this till, say, the state of Ohio started lottery some decades ago. But it's still very prevalent. And the fact that it's very small wages that it takes to, say, participate. Sometimes people don't realize that that amount adds up. So there needs to be more education in these communities about the risks and odds associated with gambling. Common forms of gambling, really across all groups that we did research. We also did research groups with groups in recovery as well. Sports betting is one of the most popular forms of gambling amongst this community. It was stated that many African Americans also grew up with their parents having Tonk Club when saying, what was your first interaction with gambling? And Tonk Club is a card game, very easy to learn. Kids can get involved. It's almost like a family or community event. Typically involves getting together at someone's house. There's food, alcohol, games. And it's really kind of their first where they can at first start winning little prizes, little coins. Obviously, as they get older, there's more cash on the table. And also internet cafes are also a very large part of the community and culture. Within, say, African-American neighborhoods, females are regular at playing slots within these different locations. So the motivations was that, they asked, well, are we talking about middle to upper or lower middle to lower class? So when focusing on mid to lower class, it was really said, when you're talking about gambling, when you're talking to mid to higher class, that's entertainment. As mid to lower class, that's a form of income. And that's really changing the lens of really kind of what we needed to do, really kind of find a way to speak to, this is not a form of income, not a way to, say, pay rent or bills. It is a form of entertainment, and it is just that. It's common to chase losses and try to make money from gambling activities. These are the things behaviors and attitudes that we are looking to change. In terms of communication tips, to help at-risk African-American communities, we need to be sensitive to saying this group is more at risk. So we know that they're a fast rising group. As we were told, the African-American community, at least to this group that we were speaking, are tired of hearing we are at highest prevalence of heart disease. We are at highest prevalence of this disease state. They feel that this segregates the population more and can actually feel discriminatory, but instead take a more educational approach, more about the risks, more about financial responsibility. This is a less intrusive way to communicate, less preachy, as well as more positive and effective way to address the issue. And suggested outreach channels for those of you who are running campaigns in your communities, they very much trust voices within their community. So education, movie theaters, churches, community centers, parks and recreation department is a great avenue when trying to get groups of youth to also champion that message. So to do this, what we've done is we have a partnership. Radio is a major form. As you see, 93% of all Americans weekly. Radio reaches 93% of all African Americans weekly and is the most popular medium amongst African American listeners. Radio One is the top network. Within the 3 C's, we have a partnership with Radio One, or you might know it as Urban One Radio, who owns the most listened to urban and hip hop radio stations in Columbus, Cincinnati, and Cleveland. And we thought that we needed a voice, almost an influencer within this, someone that the community looks to as a main voice on various topics. DJ Incognito is a very popular voice, not only within these 3Cs, but within the region and growing popularity. And we utilize his voice and creative approach to the messaging and script for our new PSAs. We also took our tactics to their online social media platforms, where we're running Instagram live interviews with Incognito and Facebook and Instagram video posts with Incognito. My suggestion, say depending on what region you are, would be to follow these pages. And when say, before you bet, first off, follow Before You Bet on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, which is where we also share our posts and discussions with Radio One. So Scott Anderson had a live interview with Incognito just the other week, talking about the issues facing the community, ways that people can be responsible. And the fact that it was delivered through Incognito, it was a great response and great reception to that discussion. Incognito also helped us develop a new form of script for our PSAs. And that's something that I want to share. But even before posting, we did concepts that we shared with the Urban One group, what they thought, how they would shift verbiage and messaging. And then we also conducted one-on-one interviews from 12 community leaders, some from college fraternities, some from different behavioral units, some from different areas from all around the state, to make sure that we were being cognitive of these different tactics that are now being played on social media, digital pre-roll, connected TV, Urban One radio, and cable TV. And just to show you what these look like, and excuse us if there's some lag, but this is the new African-American PSA, which comes in a 30 and 15-second format. And as you can see, it's educational. Positioning gambling is not a form of income, but a form of entertainment and how you can be responsible.
Do you enjoy sports betting, lottery, or online gaming? If so, it's important to know that gambling is a form of entertainment, not a form of income. Being an adult takes a lot of brain power, big or small. You're making decisions constantly. Life can be complicated, but responsible gambling doesn't have to be. Gauge your risk for problem gambling and take the quiz at beforeyoubet.org. And if you know someone who needs help, call 1-800-589-9966. This has been a message from Ohio for responsible gambling.
So we were very impressed
Do you enjoy
Incognito's ability. We kind of gave him a creative brief of all the points and all the research that we had and the amount of messaging he had around the forms of gambling you might be engaged in, how you should view gambling, the warning signs, as well as tips, and all done in a very clear, concise way, which is fantastic that it takes a more educational approach, as we learned. Oh, and I'm seeing, I'm just checking some comments. So sorry, I'm catching up to you. So full screen mode. Thank you for that. That was from Corey. So I'll try to catch your comments as we go. But of course there will be some Q&A at the end. So if I don't catch them, I'll try to recap when we move forward as well. Something else that we also did was create a new African-American community toolkit that's available to you. So we have educational handouts. We have the quiz that I showed on the Before You Bet site that you can actually print off and utilize in community centers or say in different group discussions. We have posters that can be printed, print ads that we can help say format, co-brand, and help say implement through your different media tactics, billboards, digital display ads, social media, and radio spots. All of these are available to be co-branded at no charge to you through our team of creatives. And if contacting info@beforeyoubet.org for more questions about these items, Beth Burson would be the individual who would set up a consultation meeting with you, understand what you are needing, your deadlines, and we would get those to you. And just to show you a little bit of what the community toolkit looks like, if I go to the website, you can find it right here, Community Toolkit, or here, Community Toolkit. And this is the new format. It first starts off with our brand guide, logos and fonts and iconography. The social media guideline we'll go into later, but you'll see that we have toolkit for our general campaign, seniors, sports, Spanish, and for the African-American toolkit. And for those of you who have been partnering with us for some years, you see that is kind of it now in this card feature where it's much easier to kind of navigate kind of the populations that you're going for. But you can see you can either preview the PDFs if you want to just print as is, or the art files are downloadable right there if you want to co-brand yourself. But we understand not everyone has a graphic designer on staff, so that's where we can come in and help. We have informational handouts for the African American Toolkit. What are the dangers of problem gambling? Why is this a serious issue for the community? What is problem gambling? How do you know the signs, tips? And are you at risk? Things that you can do. Take the quiz, access free education, get help. Of course, promoting our toolkit. And then down below, whoops. You'll find posters. 11 by 17 is their format, but if we need to say make different, as well as we have some billboards for you. And even radio spots that Incognito helped with.
Incognito tapping in. Being an adult takes a lot of brain power. Big or small, you're making decisions constantly. So I want to talk to you about gambling. Gambling is not a form of revenue. Even small bets add up. So know the warning signs. Live responsibly. Gauge your risk level by taking the quiz on beforeyoubet.org. Gambling is not a form of revenue. It's a form of entertainment. Know the risks, set limits, and recognize when to quit. If you know someone who needs help, call 1-800-589-9966. This has been a message from Ohio for responsible gambling.
And thank you, Mary, as well as Jose. Seems like you're liking some of the spots, so I appreciate the nice chat thus far. Took a moment to see if there was anything anyone had questions about. So those are, really the toolkits for you to peruse, but it's not for you to be alone. You're not alone in this, where we are here to help. And just to name some great partners that we have around this toolkit, talking about the Leucadia Way in Northeast Ohio and Northwest Ohio, the Zeph Center has been doing some great partnerships with us, utilizing this foundational campaign messaging. Shout out to Envision Partnership and Prevention First in Southwest Ohio, of course, Maryhaven in Central Ohio. And even from our national, awards from, this campaign, we've gotten great national coverage. Even groups like the Kansas Department of Aging and Disability are utilizing our resources, as well as other states, to be able to leverage our content and information through their efforts. So the Latino focus group, we also conducted with La Mega radio station. There was 8 attendees from different backgrounds of Mexico, Venezuela, and Colombia, which we found are very different in backgrounds and very different in terms of, the types of work that they have, kind of their level in society. As mentioned, if you are from Venezuela, you might be of, a higher social class, maybe a better job. You might gamble in different formats. Mexico might, more wage workers. So the differences of these, it's not just Latino as one blanket population. They have very many different, obviously different countries and different backgrounds that we need to take care of. But much like Radio One, La Mega is a major voice for the Latino community in the main threes of, Columbus, Cincinnati, and Cleveland, helping us kind of identify things that we need to look for. So common forms of gambling, there's a lot of betting with friends, ranging from smaller bets, higher stakes, mostly around sports betting, soccer, boxing, UFC, horse racing. Keno is a big one. It's smaller amounts of money. Cockfighting is still prevalent. I think that's something that might need to be addressed in a different campaign, just because that has, obviously other issues involved, but still prevalent in the communities that we were talking about. But a lot of this deals with many in this community, many Latinos, as they said, do not gamble at casinos because there is a population or family members that are illegal, maybe not have ID and cannot get in, or they're insecure about the language barriers. So if at a casino, they like the games that are more machine driven, not the games that are very fast paced, fast moving, where there might be a dealer playing, Texas Hold'em, blackjack, whatever it might be. So they really gravitate towards, the machine games. Common trends is many wage workers have more cash on hand, which can be problematic, which makes gambling easier. Also, small bets seem less intimidating, and then the gambler doesn't realize that those losses can add up so fast. But really, they need to know that there's a support system. They also are a very close-knit community, and dressing influencers is a good way to reach the problem gambler. To resolve a problem, Latinos rely on their family and the community. In this community, mental health is not addressed as much as they feel like it should. Therefore, they do not acknowledge the problem. And if they do, unfortunately, sometimes drinking it is a problem or relying on family support. They don't say go out to a call line or say website. So trying to switch that behavior is something that we are really working on. In communication, messaging, gambling is not a form of income as well as something that we need to communicate. Making losses more apparent, especially in small bet gaming. As they mentioned, they like the slot machines, small bet wages, but those add up over time. And other insights are many men live here alone as their family lives in Mexico. Gambling can be a form of socialization. But just so you know, we do have a toolkit in Spanish speaking languages. So just to show you, and I know I'm doing a lot of switching back and forth, excuse me for that, but just to show you some of the tools that you have at your fingertips, we utilize Lemega to not only translate the language, because you can go to say Google and translate English to Spanish. Those translations aren't really how, say, it's spoken, the words that they would use, and that's something that they educated us on. So they helped us with the translation of, say, our different posters, our print ads, even saying get set before you bet, that's not really how they would say it. So different posters that you can utilize if running these different campaigns. And even we have videos, PSA in Spanish, as well as radio spots. So
¿Cómo sabes si tú o un ser querido corre el riesgo de tener problemas con las apuestas? Get Set Before You Bet es la iniciativa de Ohio para ayudar a mantener el juego de apuestas seguro y responsable para todos. ¿Cómo funciona? Simplemente visita la página de internet beforeyoubet.org para aprender más y tomar el cuestionario de juego de apuestas responsable. Este mensaje fue traído a ti por Ohio for Responsible Gambling.
So we have a few spots, about 4 spots, including 2 30 seconds and 2 15 seconds. So if interested, please look at the Spanish toolkit, but know that we are growing on this, but that toolkit won't be till to July. We'll go over kind of what our schedule is because we've been launching new toolkits throughout this year. So what else is new? We talked about the newly revamped toolkit. Hopefully this helps a lot of you that are familiar with what it was before. The general toolkit, we thought that the thumbnail sharing system was much better. Also, the size is given right away, as well as when it was launched. Now, while some of these are launched in 2017, it would not be on the site if the information was not still relevant. So don't let that deter you, but we do want to let you know which ones are more present, more recently developed over these years. The information is still true, but it's about finding what fits best within your goals. Also, we have new PSAs for the general population. So we were hoping for a video shoot last year. As you can imagine, with coronavirus, there wasn't much getting in person for, say, video shoots, but we wanted to create an animation approach because as we were hearing, we need to get back to education. That was the main crux of what this campaign was about. Helping people get set before they bet. So we created this more character style. I think you're seeing it more prevalent in advertising and really a more friendly, more accessible way to get our message out there. So just want to check. So let's take a look at this.
Life comes with many responsibilities, like setting limits.
From now on, only 2 kids for sleepovers.
And recognizing risks.
Ugh. Yeah, that's a bit right.
And if you gamble, being responsible and setting limits is just as important. So get set before you bet. Set limits and know the risks at beforeyoubet.org. This is a message from Ohio for Responsible Gambling.
And we also have a 15-second spot
Life comes with many responsibilities, like knowing when to quit.
Do you think you can fix it? It's okay. I'll call for help.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
And if you gamble, being responsible and knowing when to quit is just as important. So get set before you bet at beforeyoubet.org.
So just looking at that last screen, this is where we might include your logo, as well as say your information. That's what we've been doing with a lot of the partners mentioned before. So, it just depends on where you're placing. If it's 15-second, 30-second needs, if you're needing both, let us know. And then the new youth campaign, something that we started with the new youth campaign was, it was very online gaming focused. But what we were finding, because we had two focus groups, one with about 10 teens and one with about 30 teens with the Licking County. And those kind of health system. They have kind of a leadership group of teenagers through different high schools telling us about kind of their experiences with gambling. And none of them considered video gaming part of gambling. When we asked them, it was more about dares, it was more about cards, Pokemon, things of that nature. Once talking to them about video games, yeah, they're loot boxes. What's wrong with that? But when expressing, so who considers video games gambling? No one raised their hand. And then expressing loot boxes, they all participated in gambling. And all of a sudden we started hearing stories about maxing out parents' credit cards and getting in big trouble with their parents because they knew their parents' credit cards were, say, implemented into that system to get player packs and Madden and so forth. So, but something that we knew that we had to expand upon not just online gaming. So right now there's tools on the site about all of the different forms that youth are engaging in gambling. And so parents and teachers, it's not really to let them know problem gambling is an issue in, say, youth. It can be an issue. It's more to let them know that gambling is happening more, and there's more ways that youth are gambling, and you should know about it. For parents that are concerned about screen time and violence, they never really thought about what other behaviors are conditioning, because as we kind of think of it, if the highest risk population is males 18 to 24, what's happening before they turn the age of 18? A switch doesn't come on. So what's happening in those developmental years that's really kind of conditioning these different behaviors? And that's really what we're trying to push out and letting educators and parents know. Just so you know, we're introducing a lot of, say, sessions. Something that we really love about PGNO this year is that there's a lot of sessions around online gaming and making the connection on what happens in a video game environment that reflects behaviors of gambling. We just launched March 1st, the online gaming toolkit. And that's something that you can access with many of the similar tools. There's not PSAs just yet for this, but we realized we had changed the game Ohio, but during coronavirus, people were in their homes and gambling was still, say, an issue. How are they gaming? Adults video game almost as much as, say, youth. It's not, we grew up on, say, video games. If you're in 20s, 30s, 40s, it does not discriminate in terms of age, and say you can get deep in, say, these different social apps, RPG games, sporting games. So we felt like we needed something for the adult audience on online gaming. Change the Game we created because we couldn't really tell youth to get set before they bet, because they shouldn't be betting because they're not 18 yet. But for the adult audience, making that connection was critical for us. And something you should know is that we had a partner recently that said, hey, we're trying to focus on the African-American population, mainly online gaming. What do I use? I see you have Changed the Game. That's about online gaming. I see the African-American toolkit. The biggest thing you can do is give us a call, contact info@beforeyoubet.org. We create customized materials that say, okay, we understand your demographic, we understand your message, and then we work with you on what those assets are to really create those different pieces that can help address your different objectives and goals for whatever campaign you're running. So don't feel that you have to fit in one of these boxes, but if we say we use one as a foundation, then we can build on that with you, because we are here to help consult with you. Something that we're about to launch is the Veterans Toolkit. We were awarded Best Media Placement for Stacey Fraunhofer-Hassan's interview with NBC4 during Veterans Day about the high prevalence of gambling for veterans. Something about this, it's a similar approach that we are taking with the African-American community. We're very grateful that Heather Chapman from the Cleveland VA Medical Center is partnering with us. I know many of you that are working in problem gambling know Heather from her thought leadership and great expertise in this area. We have tested our materials and concepts with her, and now she's even helping us organize a focus group with 5 to 8 veterans to share to get their insights, some of which who also currently struggle with gambling. So once we get those insights in and pivot, you will see that in April. We'll also be launching a new sports betting toolkit as well. As you know, you might be running a campaign around Super Bowl time. March Madness is a huge time. Fantasy sports. This is a toolkit where right now we have some tools that were addressed in March campaigns before, but we see a greater need for this as this is an evolving discussion in Ohio and addressing people's questions. Also, Mike Bazzelli, as you know, he's on the call and a great member of PGNO, has a great program really educating fraternities and sororities and really Greek life and the gambling culture that goes on. That really spawned kind of our interest to develop a toolkit for college students in general, which he's helping, say, provide information, has provided us great guidance in doing so. That will be launching in June, and we plan on expanding on our Latino population toolkit soon in July. So this is what you can be expecting for that community toolkit, how it will be growing. But let us know, what items that you might need. So let me just check the chat, see if there's any questions. And Cheryl, yes, Youth Leadership Council of Licking County, excuse me. And Cheryl was the one who helped with that with our youth gambling initiative. So it was the Youth Leadership Council of Licking County that helped us with developing insights for the Change the Game Ohio. So excuse me, Cheryl, but thank goodness for a chat box. So, and they were very helpful and they were very enthusiastic, very bright group of 30 teenagers using their free time to come from all over the county to help. It was very impressive, the group that they're running there in Licking County. So moving forward, how can you get engaged? As mentioned, this will be available to you. Beth Burson, during right now, we're working in a hybrid model, really more remotely. Beth Burson, probably email beth@origobranding.com. And actually, I will put, I can put that in the chat there afterwards, but, it's just beth@origobranding.com can help. Her extension is 113. She can help consult. If it's creative needs, our creative director, art directors will get on the call with you on how we can form. Also, there's a lot of printed tools around rack cards, posters for both Before You Bet and Change the Game. Scott Anderson, who you've probably seen in sessions, a great leader, a great speaker on this subject matter, and has been really kind of a content expert for us throughout the course of our partnership. He can help, get you those materials as well and let you know what he has at his fingertips. But even if you ask for things and we don't have them, it'll let us know that these are in high demand. So we can plan on, producing them in the future. So moving forward, I want to go through our social media guideline. Something that is on our toolkit right now, and this is the last time I promise that we will go through the flipping back and forth. It's located right here, social media guidelines. And it's if you want to run organic posts without paying on your own coalition, organizations, social media channels, how you can do so in partnering with our campaign, driving people. So because we're all sharing the same mission, we're all sharing the same goal, how we can all partner together. So in this section, our goal is to give an understanding about how helpful tactics, terminology, and processes when it comes to successfully managing and executing your own social media campaigns at a local level. It can include how to coordinate messaging and connect your message to new audiences, reaching different demographics and at-risk populations. Tips about frequency, pre-generated posts, how to use hashtags. We have templates available to you that you can plug and play imagery and headlines. And also what assets and templates are available to you from Before You Bet and Change the Game, how to even utilize those PSA assets that we have. which really say if you access our Vimeo page, you have access to all those videos that we do. So the full campaign social media guides on the community toolkit, it's in the very first section, but we can help guide you through that as well. The goals for the social media guidelines is to help you utilize pre-generated message, graphic templates, other content guidelines, how to implement the guidelines outlined to develop your own content strategy for media, social media, but also blogging and e-blasts. This is not something to handcuff you on this is what you have to do, but use it as a foundation on what works right for your organization. Some of you come from a background of a prevention coalition, some of you from mental health, some with Department of Health that's covering everything from drug addiction to say domestic violence to gambling. So we know that this is just a small piece of what you're messaging. So that's going to be critical for you to utilize this to then make a plan for you. And tips and suggestions outlined in the document to generate approach to posts and content that align with your organization's values. We have about 30 to 40 pre-generated posts for you. But the hope is that after using some, you can start developing your own using the same structures and systems that we do, all aligning with the tone and voice of our social media efforts, making sure that we are creating a more unified approach to this campaign. And utilizing Orgo if need be on creating design templates for the graphic posts, because we found that there is more engagement for posts. Also, Facebook prioritizes your messaging when there's diversity of links, videos, imagery. If you're only posting links or if you're only posting imagery, they prioritize that less on getting out to your community. So first off, you don't want to have, say, a one-toned approach to how you to your messaging around responsible gambling. The way that Before You Bet does, we try to do a quarterly approach. So 25% is just around prevention education in general. One day might just be about a simple tip that's easy to share. Common gambling myths, knowing your risks, tips on responsible gambling, graphically shown. We also want to make sure 25% is towards this new initiative, Change the Game Ohio. We did not want to cannibalize one campaign. So all of our Change the Game Ohio is done through the Before You Bet social media. But also, while it's an influencer campaign, there are people that need help right now. So letting them know about the helpline, letting them know how to seek proper treatment. Stats and inspirational messaging. Sometimes just that inspirational messaging about how you can have a new beginning. It's never too late to start is enough to get someone to engage. Something that we found is that even though we have a helpline as well as a live chat, people have private messaged us on our Facebook with very ominous messages of, you don't know how hard it is, or if only I could change. That's it. Obviously they're seeking help, but they can't even get out the words or take out that step. We have a protocol, obviously, where immediately we defer them to we immediately alert the Ohio Department of Mental Health and Addiction Services. They get in contact with these individuals and get them to the help that they need. You want to have those protocols in place as well, because once you start messaging, people find social media as the way to communicate and express themselves. So be prepared. But also, this is not the percentage that you need to use as well. For example, if you're a prevention organization, you might be 50% prevention, 50% prevention, 25% tips, and 25% get help. And you might not have a focus on Change the Game, but this is a nice basis. It's good to maybe just get a schedule, maybe day 1, day 2, day 3, 1 on stats and facts, 2 on community engagement, sharing tips of target audiences, happenings in the community, and upcoming events. You might have town hall discussions. You might be visiting schools, but also share other groups within your region, as well as the Before You Bet post, to show how you're sharing and communicating with different audiences as well. Some days you won't even have to create a post. For example, Maryhaven has a great new video campaign of testimonials of individuals in recovery. One gentleman was about his recovery and problem gambling. And because Maryhaven does great work and the story was beautifully told that recovery can start whenever, we shared that to the Before You Bet, showing our partnership as well with Maryhaven. So the best thing you can do is go like as many pages as you can that align with your vision and values, specifically Before You Bet, and you'll find a lot of content that you can repurpose for your own organization. Also, if you're creating blogs, You might have heard our presentation last year about COPE. COPE is an acronym: create once, place everywhere. You've already done the work to create the blog. Well, that should be going on your Facebook. That should be going on your Twitter. That should be going on your e-newsletter. That should be going as a press release to your different earned media. So if you create that blog, integrate it into your social media strategy as well. And that's really about repurposing content. If you're partnering with this campaign, you can create your post to align with the efforts or share or repost the social media activities of Get Set Before You Bet that either uses the campaign assets or reflects the work and resources of the campaign. It's also helpful to take opportunities to share other organizations' posts about relevant subjects, events, or studies, creating new relationships with already established networks. Sometimes Before You Bet shares posts that have nothing to do with gambling at all. Sometimes they're just motivational self-help quotes about starting a new day, connecting with old friends, and really kind of getting back to, say, the greater values of life and appreciating life. Is that about gambling? No, but does it align with, say, what we want people, about the spirit of our campaign? Yes. And therefore, it's not always just a fact. You want to diversify that content. And sometimes you might have an opportunity to boost a post. It only takes a few $100s. You can say, target your specific region, the age range. For example, you might have a post of the prevalence of holiday gifting of lottery tickets during Christmas holiday time, or maybe risks around gambling around the big game during the Super Bowl. Those are big time where gambling is top of mind. People who don't normally gamble engage in doing so. So that might be a time that you boost. So really kind of looking at keywords that are commonly used around, say, problem gambling, addiction, get help. Those are those people. But we even target people that are searching for trips to Las Vegas or tips for online poker. Those individuals that are looking for the more positive ends on looking on how to gamble better. Well, this is information for them as well. I'm going to stop here, just look at the chat. So someone's asking for the link for this. I will provide that here in just a little bit. But if you go to the Before You Bet site and go to the community toolkit, you'll probably have to put in, you'll have to request the password, but it's Before You Bet, no spaces, and you'll see it as one of the first sections, but I will show it again at the end. In this guide that you'll be searching for, that someone just asked about, we have all these pre-generated posts with linking that you can also utilize. We have posts about general responsible gambling, sharing and engagement, simple tips that you can utilize. This should give a nice running start, because we imagine, unless you are an organization that's only focused on responsible gambling and problem gambling, which we know that many of you are wearing many different hats, this should keep you covered by doing 1 to 3 posts a week for probably a few months for what we have on the site. We have resources that we are also pushing forward about our page around the issue, tips and education, the helpline, as well as the help text line as well. We also partner with and try to promote. Also, simple facts that you can utilize. More than 80% of gambling addicts never seek treatment. 32% of individuals struggling with gambling addiction consider committing suicide. Really showing what the prevalence is of this problem and why it should be taken seriously. And also change the game when doing those adult to youth influencer strategies. We have hashtag practices for you as well. Hashtags kind of a world where people are still searching within, but general best practices: don't string too many words together. Use hashtags that are short, easy to remember, and relevant and specific hashtags. Something I like to do is say, look at what hashtags are being used for that specific topic, whether it be around the Super Bowl, holiday gifting, lottery. So my post can be put into that conversation and potentially be exposed to groups that might not already be familiar with my organization. Pick hashtags that are likely to be used by other social media users and limit the number of hashtags you use depending on the platform. We'll go into that in a little bit. Why use hashtags? Hashtags are useful for many reasons. They increase engagement with followers, build your brand, show support for social issues. So as mentioned, you might be doing a responsible gambling post, or it might just be a post about self-help or positive mindfulness, but you might have a hashtag about responsible gambling. You might have a hashtag that brings you into that conversation, cross-pollinating these different topics and themes that we're really trying to promote. Also, monitor social media influencers and similar organizations. Which hashtags are they using often? How many hashtags are in their posts? You might have larger organizations or mental health organizations running a campaign. To be a part of their campaign for your responsible gambling efforts, utilize those hashtags if they're aligning with the same mission. There's also online generator tools like hashtagify.me, which helps you find best Twitter and Instagram hashtags for specific topics, how many it's being used, and keep an eye on trending hashtags. Something that I would also recommend. Sometimes people have used a hashtag that is not for what you think it is. Make sure that that hashtag is not being used for other inappropriate reasons. And I'm not going to give any examples, but there's been some instances, not for our campaigns, but stories throughout the industry where someone was trying to promote something very positive and it was for something very lewd that another maybe porn site was using for their initiative. So it's always important to see if other people are using it and how. Do that research beforehand. I'm not going to go through all of these because essentially, it's on the site, but hashtags on Twitter, 1 to 2 hashtags per post is the best. We have a link as well that you can find other great other good best practices. You can use hashtags anywhere in your tweets or reply. Sometimes it's embedded in the post. Sometimes you're just putting them on the end, and make sure it's within the 280 character limits. Hashtags on Facebook, 1 to 2 is usually best practices as well, mainly because you don't want to seem overly promotional. You want to narrow your scope and really kind of focus on what you're really trying to get them to really kind of hone in on about what the post is about. You can find out what hashtags are being used by using facebook.com/hashtag then put the hashtag you want, responsible gambling, and you'll see all the posts that are utilizing that hashtag. That's a great way to see if you're being part of a positive conversation. Instagram hashtags are more prevalent. You see this goes really up, 5 to 10 hashtags per post is fine. We urge you to utilize hashtags that are being used, but if you're running a campaign, such as us is before you bet hashtag, we want to see replies from other people or other people that are utilizing it. So we use before you bet, even though no one else is utilizing that in our campaign as well. And hashtags on LinkedIn just becoming popular, 1 to 2 hashtags as well, back down to just limiting as much as possible. But if you want to be engaged in, say, the hashtags that we are using, very turnkey. These are the hashtags that we're using for a general post: know your risk, play responsibly, know your risk, know when to quit. These are also hashtags used by organizations: gambling helpline, break the stigma, recovery is possible. If our call to action is taking the quiz, take the quiz, play the game. If it's or if it's around a specific topic, sports betting, youth gambling, and then of course change the game. Change the game Ohio, youth gambling. Youth gaming, youth gambling. These are hashtag banks that you can use just right off the cuff if you are partnering with our campaign. And looking at the time, just making sure. We do have pre-generated posts. I think we have about 16 here that are ready to go. All of these are downloadable JPEGs on the site. This is obviously a Vimeo link, so you'd have to use the Vimeo link, which would then pre-populate that video, just like any link does on social media. But we have, say, a post as well as a graphic for you for different topics around change the game, which are these two, taking the quiz, different stats and facts, myth breaking, how to utilize these different PSAs. Also polls, anything that asks for engagement. The best engagement you can get is when asking a question or starting a question with your post. Polls are fantastic because it asks people to interact and people want to express on social media. That's what it's for. And we just have some guidelines for Facebook and Twitter. First off, give a call to action is a great way to further engagement. Attach a relevant link, encourage the audience to learn more. But sometimes it's just a simple, post about making them feel better, about positive motivation, positive self-help. Those don't always need a CTA, but when relevant, it's a great way to get greater engagement, greater clicks for your campaign, for your organization, your brand. Try to include a graphic image or pre-generate image that you saw, similar to these past posts. If using your own image, be sure to include a link in the text, just so they know that they're where to go if you're trying to get them to engage in something. And utilize other relevant Facebook pages. Pages that we follow is obviously NCPG, Ohio Casino Control Commission, Ohio Department of Mental Health and Addiction Services, Ohio Lottery Commission, Prevention Action Alliance. UMADOP has been a great partner of ours when doing our research for the African American public service announcements and our cultural competency. But there is many organizations specific to your region, specific to the state, specific to the nation, where you can find constantly new trends and stats that you want to be posting. And of course, if a user responds is critical with a question, it's critical to respond in some positive way, either answering their question or responding to a concern. If it is an aggravated individual, please try to get them to comment to you on a private message. Oh, I appreciate your concern about this campaign. Can you PM us and we can discuss how to utilize this campaign and how we're trying to benefit the community. But engaging in those conversations online can escalate a situation very quick. We have blog topics. We don't put a months because some of you do weekly, some of you do monthly, but we want to give you topics that we have content information around. Probably if you see something here, ORG, as well as Origo, as well as PGNO, has topics around understanding the state of gambling in Ohio, facts and myths about gambling, problem gambling by the numbers, why older adults may be at risk of problem gambling. These are topics for you to choose because once again, create once, place everywhere. Once you create that blog, you created a newsletter, you created an e-blast, you created a social post, you create a press release for your different earned media, and you can pound the pavement and start releasing it to all your different news connections, seeing if it's a story that they'd like an interview about. While this is just a starting list, I'm sure you have different topics of your own. If you're ever curious if we have information about these different topics, let us know. And we also have digital ads for Before You Bet on all the toolkits. So these are just some, but we love it if you were to place these on your e-blast, your newsletters, and let us know if you're participating. We have a huge list of all the partners that are currently engaged in this. As you can see, we have about 50 plus, 60 plus partners that are currently engaging in this campaign. Let us know if you're partnering and how. We want these stories and also to promote you through our efforts as well. We appreciate our partners more than everything. You guys are doing a lot of the great work of this campaign. We have Change the Game ads as well, available for you for your websites, e-blast newsletters also. We were told to be educational. We have stats. When does gaming become gambling? Just that curiosity, that question that gets parents or adults want to click further, and so on. So that is a little bit of an overview of the new tactics available to you. Somebody asked before where I can find this. I'm just going to take the path again. I'm on the home page. I can access the community toolkit here or here in the mega menu. I'm already logged in, so I have access. It might ask you to email for a password. That's a way for us to also keep track on who's utilizing a toolkit. But it's right here in the community toolkit, this first yellow bar. So that said, I am curious to hear from you, and I have 10 chats. Oh, looks like Derek's been a huge help, as always, to us, providing links to where you can find these items, these community toolkits. Someone asked if we use geomapping. We do use geomapping for placing ads into phones. We also use retargeting. So we have been doing geo-targeting for advertising in casinos and racinos, as well as sports stadiums. So anyone, and we can target a phone up to 10 feet from where it's located. So that everyone that's located in that casino, we are targeting our ads into their phones, but it is then following their phone and retargeting them for 30 days after, because we know that they have engaged in a gambling activity. And then once on their Wi-Fi network within their homes, it also is able to be dispersed through, say, on their desktop. We've identified that user in that specific way. And Dora just mentioned she'd like to be a part. This was to panelists, so excuse us, but a toolkit for women. Something that was very interesting to us in the findings of the survey was that not only just women were on the rise, but women in rural counties were on the rise for problem gambling. So I think it's a very important topic. Each year, we will be planning for, say, what we will be focusing on in the coming year, but we think that is a very important topic, especially even finding out about the African-American community, how, say, male population, female population engages in different areas. So to the individual that mentioned that, please contact us if willing to participate, especially if you can provide content expertise, as well as insights on the best way to do so. But I think now I'm going to get shifted over to Corey. Corey, there's a Q&A session, and I'm not sure how this goes, so I'm going to let you tell me how it goes, I guess you say. But thank you again.
Yeah, thank you. I definitely appreciate all the information and walking us through this, Alessandro. Before we transition to more of a Q&A, I do have a poll question I'm going to launch. This is more of a information gathering than a knowledge check poll question, but again, it is used to verify attendance. So I'm gonna go ahead and launch that poll. It's asking what demographics or topics would be helpful for the campaign to address when creating tools for your organization. And I'll have that, and you can put more than one answer. So please try to engage with the poll through the actual poll as opposed to in the chat. I will have it in the chat as well, but definitely try to use the poll if you can. And then with that, I will leave that open for a few minutes and pass it over to Mike Bizzelli to lead some Q&A.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Alessandro, for all that information. And I'll start with, if you've been following the chat, you've seen some folks from around the state mention how helpful it's been when they've utilized these different resources and all of the many resources that Origo, Alessandro, and Beth can provide. So please, please, please reach out to them and see how they can help you with your different campaigns and just media outreach and different things like that, because it is really easy to use. They're great to work with, and it can be really beneficial. I'm going to go into a thought here just because George typed in the chat right there at the very end about working with you to work with the Asian community. And I think that's really interesting. I had it, if there was time for a comment from me, when I was with Recovery Resources up in Cleveland, we had a partnership with Asia, which stands for Asian Services in Action. And we did a lot of work with them in the community. They helped translate some of our materials into Mandarin. But what's really interesting, and this is a fairly relevant statistic. I found out about this only maybe a year and a half ago because I was still there. But less than 1% of Cleveland identifies as being of Asian descent, but folks of Asian descent are over 7% of the folks who have excluded from the Cleveland venues. And now that is statewide, but so that's a pretty big disparity there. Less than 1% of the population, but over 7% of excluding from the casinos and racinos in the Cleveland area. And when we were talking with Asia about that, they do a lot of work with the immigrant and refugee population. And what was really interesting is that they said, gambling has no language barriers. So you can walk into a casino or a racing or a venue like that. And if you know how to play the games, it doesn't matter where you are in the world. You fit in, you belong, you know how to play the games, and you can interact without having to necessarily speak the language. So they said that they think that is why many of the community members that they work with within the immigrant and refugee population find themselves at these venues and developing problematic behaviors. So I think that would be a really interesting population to do a specific micro campaign like you've done with a lot of the other populations. And I don't know how to work it. That's your role, but whatever that language could be, because I think that's interesting verbiage that gambling has no language barrier. Wherever you are in the world, if you know how to play, you know how to play. So I think that's really interesting kind of thought.
And just to piggyback on Mike's comment, that is a focus of ours. We just, with the year, we had to kind of focus on a specific group of topics, but specifically our partners at the Ohio Casino Control Commission has really been urging kind of that being part of our next endeavor and population that we want to be tackling. So the timing couldn't be better that this is being brought up. And Mike is obviously always a wealth of knowledge that kind of gives us some insight to, what the issue is and kind of what some of the barriers that people are facing. So we look forward to tackling that issue and that population, providing tools to do so.
Yeah, that'd be great. Looks like George is interested in that, and I'm sure many other folks are as well.
And we love working with George too.
Oh yeah. And then, you've been answering the questions throughout. So please, if anyone has more questions or more thoughts, please chat in. But, the majority of the chats, again, Alessandro's have been just how great this information is, and people are planning on reaching out to you to help you to utilize it. But my thoughts on the one with Incognito at the beginning, because I hadn't seen that yet. I know we were on some of the conversations, but I hadn't seen the finished product yet. I thought it was really great. And some of the chats came in about that. I mean, it's not stigmatizing. What also is interesting is it's not really demonizing to just the activity of gambling. I really like the verbiage of it's entertainment, not revenue. There was multiple imagery of like a video game controller. I saw a basketball, I saw a baseball, I saw a card. So it also shows the different ways and forms in which someone can gamble, which is really important because you mentioned a lot of different folks either consider or don't consider different forms of gambling to be gambling. So I think it's really great to show those different images, and the language was really great as well.
Yeah, we couldn't have been happier with that partnership. And, our approach to it was, we have a great team, and, the main art director on this account is African-American, and even with that, we wanted to still have Incognito have his input, really kind of, okay, let's flip the roles here a little bit and kind of more provide the research. Incognito, this is what you do every day. This is how you communicate. This is the populations that you're trying to serve best, and tackling very difficult issues while being an entertainer at the same time. And just we were so impressed because, hey, Incognito, we gave you 2 pages of research insights and goals. We don't expect you to really kind of pack all this in. And just his command of the language and just communication, we felt it was such a complete story, but did not seem overwhelming. It seemed educational, but at the same time conversational. And it's an approach that we hope to continue in further efforts when addressing other populations, obviously shifting to cultural competency and so forth, but getting back to the roots of pure education and letting people know that really, what problem gambling is. It's a disease what responsible gambling is. If choosing to do so, there's a right way to do so. And he's been a great partner. And this all goes all the way back. I couldn't give enough credit and thanks to partners like Mary Haven and George Hicks on the initial discussions, really kind of prepping us on how we should prepare. And even Heather Chapman, as we're doing the same process with the veteran toolkit as well. And of course, Lamega, who is not here, but such a great partner. We do a lot of say media buying in flights with them to reach that population, but we hope to grow those efforts. And I saw in the chat that there are individuals interested with helping with that. So please feel free to contact us. But I hope this is a community effort. Everyone on this call is here because you want to make a difference and you want to make a change. And help people gamble responsibly. I couldn't thank PG&O and all of our partners at ORG for everything that you do, and all our community partners that help push this message out. So thank you.
I'm gonna, Cheyenne had a question. Go ahead, Cheyenne.
Yeah. So I was just wondering if you guys had looked at TikTok as, a social media platform, especially that has such high youth engagement, as another, a possibility for the media toolkit maybe in the future.
Well, I've been trying to get Derek to do a dance TikTok for us, but it's, that's still in negotiations right now. But no, he's giving me a no. No, but that's a great question, Cheyenne. Really at the very forefront and really kind of talking to a lot of our community partners. Everyone's coming from a different level of engagement or familiarity with social media, and kind of Origo's approach, especially when kind of kicking off a campaign, it's almost let's master kind of 1 to 2 tools first before expanding to say some of these newer formats, especially say Snapchat is a growing tool. We just grew more to say Instagram, Pinterest, and even TikTok is, you're right. I mean, that's taking over as the main form of communication. But really kind of with this toolkit, because personally, we have Instagram guidelines just to kind of get the ball rolling. I think we wanted to start just with Facebook and Twitter, but say moving more into these more newer platforms, I think is going to be critical for the future, because it's not a young platform. Everybody's on TikTok at this point. So I think it's a great next step. I always feel master something really great. At least, let's make our Facebook and Twitter fantastic, and then let's grow to the next ring of platforms. Because also it takes resources. The more platforms you add, the more resources you need to manage all of those different platforms. So if groups would like guidance, we can provide that. But TikTok is something that should be on everyone's mind for sure. So thank you, Cheyenne.
Great. Well, we just have another 2 minutes left. I see. What about a section on hashtag life worth living? I'm unfamiliar with that hashtag. Elaine, if you could elaborate, that would be great. But we can figure out that for you as well. Bill, have you done any campaigns focused on educating doctors and psychologists? So obviously that's, physical healthcare is something that a lot of preventionists have tried to do work with. I know we've done trainings in the past, specifically for nurses. Any thoughts on that, Alessandro?
And I can probably answer both those questions. For Bill, in terms of say campaigns focused on educating doctors and psychologists, I know that there's been extensive work, not in terms of campaigns, but really putting gambling as part of screening questions when say people are coming into say treatment and recovery. And that's kind of really been the education more on the ground level rather than campaigns. So we really haven't, we're more of a general public type campaign, but might be something to be worth involved with. For example, when we went and did a focus group with groups in recovery, one of the questions was what was that point? When was that aha moment? I have a gambling disorder. And they said, when I came here. I actually came here for more of my drinking problem or my drug addiction, and through questions and screening that say the people, and this was at ZEP Center in Toledo, were very good. Well, how are these activities enhancing one or the other? What is feeding, which beast is feeding the other, essentially? And they were finding, I have a gambling problem, and I'm drinking because gambling is my favorite form of activity. When I gamble, I drink, but when I drink, I like to, and they found out that was a vicious circle. And they didn't say one was feeding the other. It was almost a competition with themselves. As they won, they would celebrate and try to get higher on the next level. As they got higher on the next level with drugs or alcohol, they would say, go back to gambling, and always trying to hit that peak, which is obviously never attainable. It's just an endless cycle. So that was something that we learned, and we really kind of rely on those, and we rely on, say, a lot of those trainings. In terms of life worth living, I'm going to make a guess that that's more of a recovery treatment type approach. And something that you're going to notice, which I should put a lens around, from what we really work in a set of parameters with our campaign efforts. While we dip our toes a little bit into, say, helplines and treatment, this is a prevention campaign. It's very focused on prevention. So when we start dipping our toes in, so you might see Mary Haven's campaign. It's a fantastic campaign about recovery, but that's not really the area that we play in. There's other efforts to do so, but we know that we might cross lines with people that might be in that state or that level, that place in their journey where we can still capture them, which is why we still promote the live chat, the helpline, and so forth. So if Life Worth Living is more of a treatment or recovery, you know, as you look at our website, know that this comes from a lens of prevention at the very foremost, but knowing that we can also help people in treatment, to get to treatment and recovery if need be.